So in this video, I'll be talking about users and groups and how users and groups are used in Linux. So we'll want to understand Linux users and groups and understand users and groups and how they interact with Linux permissions. So when you created your initial Linux system image, you gave it a username and a password. And when you're accessing that system, you're logging in with that username and password. And that's the authentication that can be used to map a specific user account. Every user account on the system is going to be associated with a specific user ID or UID. And this is just a number that corresponds to that particular user on the system. And every process that is started is associated with the UID of the user that either started or is now the owner of that process. And the etc PASSWD etc password file is what's used to map username to UIDs that are used in a given Linux system. UID 0 is a special UID that always is the root user, and the root user can do almost anything on the system. So we talked about Ubuntu's philosophy of how it uses root with sudo. Once you authenticate as sudo, you're essentially running as the root user, and you can do pretty much anything that you're allowed to do via user space permissions. Every user belongs to one or more group, and every group has a corresponding group ID or GID. So etc group is going to, similar to etc password, is going to map group names to GIDs. And we already mentioned Linux file permissions in week 1, but the permission structure is such that you can associate a file with an owning user and an owning group. So we've mentioned the UID and the GID in inodes. And in addition to associate the owning user and owning group, you can also set permissions based on the user that's the owner of the file and the group access for the file for the group ownership, as well as the access for everyone. And that is done through specific bits for read, write, and execute for each of these groups. And you can mask these bits in with given octal values, so adding 4 and 2 together, or a 600 octal value would add in read and write for the user or owner.